Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is integrity. Integrity being an integrated whole. I think that as we cultivate deeper and deeper integrity in its highest meaning, we become more and more authentically an expression of our best self. So we get to explore that this morning. It should be a lot of fun. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning, and so good to have everybody else who's joining us. Before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, and bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light, lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop. And allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. So integrity. I looked up integrity, and there are multiple definitions, and I'm just going to read them to you. Adherence to moral and ethical principles, soundness of moral character, honesty. And I think that when we become more in alignment with ourselves, that's really what integrity is, in alignment with our own moral and ethical principles, is the way that I'm interpreting this. Honesty in the way that we conduct ourselves, authenticity, the state of being whole, entire, or undiminished, which is like the fullest expression of our being. At least that's, again, my interpretations. You're welcome to have your own, of course. And the last is a sound, unimpaired, or perfect condition. And I guess we get to wonder what perfect means in this context. But when we talk about integrity, we talk about integration within ourselves. And one of the things that comes to mind for me in this moment is how ready we are so often to exile portions of ourselves, to discard portions of ourselves that we don't like, where we will shame ourselves or judge ourselves, or try to just bury parts of ourselves then and live past that, rather than integrating those portions of ourselves with our whole being, to reconcile those parts and to incorporate them in our sense of who we actually are, and not in a way that is diminishing, in a way that is making us more whole. So I don't believe that anyone is all light. We have parts of ourselves that show up as darkness, from time to time. And when we deny those parts or try to shuffle them away without integrating our shadow, we don't have the three-dimensionality that is actual to our existence, that is actual to our wholeness. And when we can integrate these parts of ourselves and own them, that we are a full spectrum expression, then we are creating a greater integrity, a greater integration, a greater wholeness for ourselves. And in being able to incorporate and integrate those portions of ourselves, all portions of ourselves. Some of us have gifts that we deny, or that we are apologetic about, or that we don't express because we think that that would separate us from other people somehow. This is a spectrum of being that we live in, and the more we can fully embrace the entirety of that spectrum, the more whole we are, the more able we are to express what we came here to express. Now, of course, that requires that you entertain the notion that we came here to express something particular. But I'm not saying that's truth. And it is something that I have as a working hypothesis, is that we each came here with specific gifts. We each came here with a specific urging of our heart and soul. And expressing that is our expression in the world, our contribution to the world. Try it on, see if that feels true to you. See what life might be through that kind of lens. The thing about that notion of each of us coming here to express something specific and unique, it's not about ego. It's not about that those gifts are ours particularly. They are our gifts to give. We've talked about this a bunch, but the integrity, the integration of the whole spectrum of being allows us to hopefully not get carried away with our egos in its negative expression. I'm not a person who just denigrates the ego, because without some ego, I don't know that it's possible to navigate in the world. That it's our sense of self, our sense of we'll just say our sense of self that allows us to express in the world. So Rosalind says, is a vision required, or can one collect small integers of ways of being which create unique self? I don't think a vision's required. I think it's tremendously helpful to have a sense of what our own essence is really helpful in allowing us to recognize that we don't have to engage in everything. We don't have to be something other than what our essence is. And I think I love that you said integers. Can we collect small integers of ways of being? which create unique self. I think it's not our behaviors that make us unique. It's not even our beliefs that make us unique. And I'm not saying this as truth. This is just my speculation or my investigation. So always try it on for yourself. But I think what makes us unique is the particular frequency and harmonization of whatever that urging of the heart and soul is, coupled with all the particular gifts that we may have that come out and express in the world in a certain energy. I call it the soul song. So it's interesting because that's something that I do with clients, is help them to generate a soul song. And I say that we've found it when they say it and their spine tingles and they get chills. And so it's something that it's not making it up, it's discovering it. And when we are able to put the words to it that sing like poetry, then it resonates with that deep chord within us that is our uniqueness, that is our specific expression, that captures our essence. And with that capturing of essence, it becomes something that lifts us up and calls us into this more integrated, integral integrity and expression. And it becomes like a North Star. It becomes something that guides us and that we can course correct to remember, this is who I am, or this is the essence of my being. And that being can express in all different ways, with all different beliefs, with all different behaviors. It allows for changeability over time. What it is this constant rhythm that carries throughout the whole life, like the heartbeat. It just occurred to me, I wonder if our heartbeats are unique. I know that we talk about how many heartbeats there are in a minute and our heart rate and all of that, but I wonder if like the character of the actual heartbeat is something that is different from person to person. It's not something I know, but it's a curious idea. Anyway, this notion of integrity is a notion of wholeness. And there, in my experience doing the core connection work with people, I can't emphasize enough the importance of healing the rifts within ourselves, the parts of ourselves that, particularly, generally, the parts of ourselves that we might have shame about or embarrassment about, or where there's fear or so much hurt that we won't even look there. And those places where we won't even look are the places that are keeping us from our deepest wholeness. And no doubt it takes courage to be willing to face these parts of ourselves that are so heavily laden with emotion, resistance, shame, hurt, fear, disappointment. All of those parts get to be brought back into the light. So the shadow only remains the shadow if there's no light. And so when we're able to bring those things out of the darkness into our presence, into our heart, in a way that we can find forgiveness, we can find integration, we can find compassion. When we're able to do that for ourselves, we are much better able to do that for others. And our own integrity, our own integration is something that then allows us the space for deeper connection with others. So many of us have fear of intimacy because there's been so much hurt around that in the past. Those parts of us that have been so deeply wounded get to come forward for healing, get to come forward for integration. And whatever it is that precipitated that circumstance in life gets to heal. So often, in my experience so far, what I find is that when people end up in difficult relationships where there are often certain patterns within life that just repeat and repeat and repeat. And I think we've all had the opportunity to see that in our own lives, where there are patterns that no matter what we seem to be doing to correct these things, the patterns seem to repeat. And I feel very deeply blessed to be able to do this core connection work with people, because it seems that in many, many cases, not all, but in many, many cases, it's able to unravel whatever is at the root of that repetition, that it's able to dissolve those patterns and to heal those wounds in a way that that pattern no longer needs to repeat, that people become free of it. Rosalind says, simply being aware of something I want to change about myself cannot be explained away. Saying I am not that is not enough. As if there's sticky residual stuff that gets lodged in. Maybe self-work seems like work to dislodge the sticky stuff. I agree. It is like sticky stuff, isn't it? And it's absolutely not enough to be aware of something. Being aware of a pattern does not necessarily disappear that pattern. It can start, it can help. And one of the conversations that seems to make a bit of a dent in that is to be recognizing that these patterns might be what I've been calling spells, that they're essentially programmed patterns that aren't our own, but that have been running us. And when we start waking up to, oh my gosh, that's just the spell, that's just this program, again and again, you get to see it again and again and again. And as you see it more and more, you can declare, oh, that's the program, that's not me. I get to choose differently. The trick there is seeing the program or seeing the spell. And in that case, when we recognize it's not who I am, where you're saying, Rosalind says, I'm not that is not enough. Sometimes recognizing that that's not mine can be enough to say, oh, shake me out of that. And if that's not me, who am I in this matter? But self-worth. Good morning, Sue. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning. Self-worth is work to dislodge the sticky stuff. And sometimes we need support in doing that. Sometimes it's not something that we can just do by ourselves. Sometimes it helps to have somebody else be able to support us in that transformation and that recognition and that integration. So again, integrity, integration of all the many parts of ourselves that we have fractured away. We get to bring it back. And just to get back to that definition, state of being whole, entire, or undiminished. And so as we chip away parts of ourselves into these dark corners, we are diminished in our wholeness. And that the truth is that light does not exist without dark. And it is our opportunity when we integrate that darkness that our ability to choose is expanded. Because when there's only one option, there's no choice, right? And so we only get to be light when we're choosing. If our behavior is automatic, is that light? It's a good question. I don't know. I don't know the answer. I'm just playing with these ideas, but I think it's worth looking at how does goodness occur? What is goodness? And maybe I was going to say maybe it doesn't really matter what goodness is, as if we are integrated, if we are in our wholeness, if we are in our authenticity, if we are connected to our deepest soul song, our deepest callings, then we are in alignment. And maybe that in itself, like we're very conditioned into this notion of polarity, light and dark, good and bad, and maybe we just get to be in our wholeness, and that in itself is good. I wonder, and we get to choose too. So being in our presence, being in our actual presence, connected to our deepest presence, in alignment, in integrity, maybe that's a whole different conversation than light and dark and goodness and darkness, evil, or it may be another dimension of conversation that comes into like the purity of being itself. Interesting consideration. So I wonder how, I don't know that the light and dark conversation then becomes as important. As we reach greater and greater integrity, then we're in alignment, we're in the flow, we're connected, we're responsive. And I don't know how much of that is choosing and how much of that is listening. That's an interesting thing to be thinking about. How much of it is listening and being responsive to the calling of life. It's funny how we can easily get caught in the conversation about polarity when we don't even recognize it. Like we talk about light and dark. Well, they each confirm each other. And so there may be another dimension where there's just wholeness. It's kind of an interesting thought. Because when we talk about light and dark, there's often a righteousness around that conversation. There's even a righteousness around the conversation about integrity, right? My integrity doesn't allow me to do that the way that we normally use the word, right? A righteousness, a ego in its not greatest expressions. So Rosalind says, the moon is always orbiting around the earth. The absence of sunlight illuminates the different phases of the moon. The thing is that the sun is always there too, and the earth is orbiting around. So it's like the sun and the moon are always there. It's just that we're seeing different aspects of it. The sun and the moon and the earth and the other planets, they're always there. They're doing their thing. And we create the definition of sunlight and darkness, sunlight and moonlight and darkness. So it's very interesting. There's a way to be, I think that there's a way to be in relation to all of this that transcends the polarities, and that maybe approaches more closely to the truth, where all of that is part of the same picture. So anyway, I think that's it for today. What a fun conversation it was for me too. Anyway, I hope it was for you. And I am Mira Rubin. I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network and Enlightened World Living. And it is, as always, is a tremendous pleasure and privilege to spend this time together and explore with you. Rosalind says, the pull of yin and yang, the peacemaker, enables us to go in and out, around and under. Like sunlight, I am able to go anywhere. Oh, I love that. That's just poetry, Rosalind. Thank you. And thank all of you for joining us and your willingness and courage to explore ways of being, ways of thinking, ways of connecting. So until next time.